Beneath the ancient stones of Jerusalem, archaeologists working for the Israeli government just uncovered something that's sending shockwaves through the Christian world. For nearly 2,000 years, the Pool of Siloam has been whispered about in sermons and history books as the place where Jesus performed one of his most profound miracles. But what they found buried beneath layers of earth and time isn't just confirming biblical accounts. It's revealing something far more unsettling that's making believers question everything they thought they knew about this sacred site. Let's start by taking you back to the biblical significance of this place. The Pool of Siloam appears in both the Old and New Testaments, but it's the account in John chapter 9 that makes this discovery so earth-shattering. This is where Jesus encountered a man who had been blind from birth. A man who had never seen light, never glimpsed his parents' faces, never witnessed the temple shining in Jerusalem's sun. Jesus did something extraordinary that day. He spat on the ground, made clay with his hands, placed it on the man's eyes, and gave him a simple command that would change everything. Go wash in the Pool of Siloam. The man stumbled his way to the pool, washed his eyes, and when he lifted his head from those ancient waters, light flooded his vision for the very first time in his life. For centuries, skeptics have dismissed this miracle as nothing more than a spiritual allegory. They claim John invented the pool, that the gospel was never intended as a historical fact but as symbolic storytelling. They argued that the Pool of Siloam was just a literary device, not a real place where real miracles happened. Long before Jesus walked these paths, the Pool of Siloam was already a landmark of incredible significance. The prophet Isaiah himself mentioned its gentle waters, using them as a metaphor to rebuke Israel for desiring the mighty rivers of Assyria instead of trusting in God's quiet provision. But it was King Hezekiah who transformed this site into something truly remarkable. Preparing for an Assyrian siege that threatened to destroy Jerusalem, Hezekiah ordered his workers to carve a tunnel through solid rock. This wasn't just any construction project. They were bringing water from the Gihon spring directly into the Pool of Siloam, creating a hidden water source that would keep the city alive during the coming siege. The pool wasn't merely a water source. It became a symbol of God's faithfulness during the darkest times. When Nehemiah rebuilt Jerusalem after the exile, he specifically mentions repairs made to the wall of Siloam. From Isaiah to Hezekiah to Nehemiah, this pool stood as a witness through the centuries that God provides living water for his people. Hezekiah's tunnel wasn't just a desperate wartime measure. It was an engineering marvel that replaced an older, more vulnerable Canaanite tunnel system. When the Assyrian king Sennacherib approached Jerusalem with his massive army, Hezekiah made a strategic decision that would echo through history. The old water source at the Gihon spring was sealed off from enemy access, and the new Siloam tunnel was inaugurated. This created what the Bible calls the lower pool, while the upper pool continued to be fed by the older system. The strategic brilliance of this move cannot be overstated. Hezekiah essentially created a hidden lifeline that would sustain Jerusalem through one of its greatest trials. But what the Israeli archaeological team discovered about this tunnel system is raising questions that are making biblical scholars very uncomfortable. The precision of the engineering, the scale of the construction, and the timeline of when this was actually built don't align with what many have assumed about ancient capabilities. Do you think the new discoveries about Hezekiah's tunnel challenge what we've believed about ancient engineering and biblical history? Let me know if you think yes too. Let's return to that pivotal moment when Jesus encountered the blind man. This wasn't just any healing. The Gospel of John tells us this man had been blind from birth, meaning he had never experienced sight in any form. Into this complete darkness, Jesus brought not just physical healing, but a demonstration of divine power that would shake Jerusalem to its core. The command to wash in the Pool of Siloam wasn't arbitrary. Jesus was connecting this miracle to centuries of Jewish tradition and the sacred significance of these waters. When the man obeyed and washed in the pool, returning with perfect sight, it created an uproar that divided the entire city. Some rejoiced, others doubted, and many raged against what they had witnessed. For centuries afterward, this account was dismissed by skeptics as nothing more than religious mythology. They claimed the pool was fictional, that John's gospel was too spiritual and symbolic to be trusted as a historical fact. They insisted it was written too late to be reliable, too focused on theology to care about real places or actual events. But the stones were waiting to tell a different story. In the summer of 2004, something happened that would forever change how we view the biblical accounts. Municipal workers in Jerusalem were doing routine maintenance, digging to repair a sewer line in the city of David. Suddenly, their equipment struck something hard. As the dust cleared, they saw the faint outline of ancient stone steps emerging from the earth. Work was immediately halted. Archaeologists rushed to the scene, and what they found took their breath away. These weren't just any ancient steps. As excavation continued, a massive pool began to emerge from the ground, built in the shape of a trapezoid with sides stretching as long as 225 feet. 3 sets of 5 steps ran around its perimeter, designed to allow worshippers to descend at different water levels. This wasn't the tiny pool that later pilgrims had visited. This was a monumental reservoir capable of holding thousands of people, larger than half a football field. And here's what sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Coins embedded in the plaster confirmed beyond any doubt that this pool was in active use during the 1st century, during the very lifetime of Jesus Christ. The skeptics could no longer dismiss the Pool of Siloam as legend. It was real, exactly as John had described it, and it was exactly where the Bible said it would be. And before we continue unfolding this fascinating discovery, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Don't forget to share it with your friends too. It helps the channel out, and I'm excited to continue bringing you more awesome content. As excavations continued, archaeologists uncovered something that nobody expected to find: a wide paved road leading directly from the Pool of Siloam up to the Temple Mount. This was the Pilgrim Road, and its implications are staggering. For centuries, Jewish worshippers would follow a specific ritual. They would bathe in the purifying waters of Siloam, then walk this very road, singing psalms as they ascended to God's holy temple. Every stone still bears the grooves of countless feet, the echoes of voices that sang psalms of ascent. I was glad when they said unto me, Let us go into the house of the Lord. Speaking of this scene, the blind man, newly healed, is running up these very steps with eyes wide open for the first time in his life. He's seeing a city he had only heard about but never witnessed. Jesus himself would have walked this road countless times, climbing with his disciples, teaching as he went. The physical reality of this discovery is overwhelming, but here's what's making Christians uncomfortable. The road reveals something about the scale and sophistication of 1st century Jerusalem that challenges many assumptions about the biblical period. The engineering, the urban planning, and the sheer magnitude of the infrastructure suggest a level of development that some find difficult to reconcile with traditional interpretations of the era. If the pool was real, if the road was real, then John's Gospel couldn't be dismissed as mere allegory. History had confirmed Scripture in a way that removed one of their primary arguments against biblical reliability. For years, critics had insisted that the Gospel of John was unreliable. They said it was written too late, too spiritual, too symbolic to be trusted as a historical fact. They claimed it wasn't interested in real places or real events, but only in theological concepts. The discovery of the Pool of Siloam completely demolished these arguments. But here's the twist that's making many Christians equally uncomfortable. If John was this accurate about the Pool of Siloam, if he got the details right down to the stone steps and the Pilgrim Road, then what does that mean about everything else he recorded? The cross where Jesus died, the tomb where he rose, the conversations he had, the miracles he performed. The stones are forcing both believers and skeptics to confront some very uncomfortable questions. Archaeology cannot prove faith, but it's removing excuse after excuse from unbelief. And that's creating a crisis for some Christians who preferred when their faith didn't have to deal with such concrete historical evidence. During their excavation, the team identified not just the pool itself, but an entire complex system that reveals the sophisticated nature of 1st century Jewish religious practice. The pool served as a site for ritual immersion for approximately 120 years, until the Romans destroyed the Jewish temple in 70 AD. But what they found suggests that the religious practices surrounding this site were far more complex and organized than many Christians have been taught to believe. Archaeologist Eli Shukran made a statement that sent ripples through the Christian community. He said, "At the time we discovered this 4 months ago, we were 100% certain it was the Pool of Siloam. Today we know that the Pool of Siloam is connected to the Temple Mount. There is a pathway that connects both elements. The whole system is clearer today." This revelation about the systematic connection between the pool and the Temple Mount is forcing biblical scholars to reconsider their understanding of how 1st century Judaism actually functioned. The implications are staggering, and they're making many Christians very uncomfortable. Do you think the discovery of the Pool of Siloam's connection to the Temple Mount changes how we should understand 1st century Jewish and Christian traditions? Let us know in the comments below. Many Christians have been taught that faith and historical evidence exist in separate spheres. They've been told that faith doesn't need proof, that believing without seeing is somehow more virtuous. But the Pool of Siloam discovery is forcing a confrontation between faith and historical reality that's making many believers squirm. The Israeli government's archaeological team didn't just find a pool. They found coins, pottery fragments, and stone bottle stoppers that provide concrete evidence linking the site directly to the biblical period. The stone-lined pool, with steps on all sides, has been substantially uncovered, including platforms and the water channel system that fed it. But here's what's really unsettling: many Christians. If the Bible is this historically accurate about details like the Pool of Siloam, then it raises the stakes for everything else recorded in Scripture. It means the Gospels weren't just spiritual teachings wrapped in fictional stories. They were eyewitness accounts of real events that happened in real places to real people. This level of historical verification is forcing Christians to confront whether they're ready for their faith to be this grounded in verifiable reality. Some find this comforting, but others find it terrifying, because it removes the safety net of spiritual metaphor. Bible scholar Stephen Fawn shared insights that are making many Christians uncomfortable. He emphasized that the waters of the Pool of Siloam were considered so pure that they could cleanse even leprosy. This explains why Jesus chose to heal the blind man in these specific waters. But it also reveals something about the sophisticated understanding of ritual purity that existed in first-century Judaism. The temple restrictions that prevented the entry of individuals with certain diseases weren't arbitrary religious rules. They were part of a complex system of spiritual and physical purification that the Pool of Siloam was designed to address. People wouldn't just be healed physically, but spiritually prepared for temple worship. This discovery is forcing Christians to grapple with the reality that Jesus operated within a far more sophisticated religious and cultural system than many have been taught. The implications for understanding his ministry, his teachings, and his relationship to Jewish law are profound and unsettling for those who prefer simpler interpretations. If the Pool of Siloam is real, if the Pilgrim Road is real, if the entire system of first-century Jewish religious practice was this sophisticated and historically verifiable, then what does that mean for how we understand Christianity today? The pool served as both a ritual immersion site and a source of drinking water for pilgrims making their 3 times annual journey to Jerusalem. Jews would camp around it, and Jesus, as a pilgrim in Jerusalem, likely frequented the area regularly. This wasn't an isolated miracle location, but part of the everyday religious life of first-century Judaism. The Israeli Antiquities Authority continues to work with the Greek Orthodox Church, which owns the site, to expand excavations. The pool is believed to extend under an orchard overgrown with vegetation and large trees. As more of this ancient complex is revealed, it's raising even more questions about the historical accuracy of biblical accounts. Archaeologist Ronnie Reich from the University of Haifa made a statement that captures the magnitude of what they're uncovering. Here we can measure the greatness of the city in those days. The monumental grandeur of ancient Jerusalem revealed by these excavations is forcing a complete reconsideration of the biblical period. But the Pool of Siloam isn't just confirming biblical accounts. It's revealing that the historical Jesus operated in a world that was far more complex, sophisticated, and politically charged than most Christians have been taught to believe. The pool wasn't just a place of healing. It was a center of religious and political activity in first-century Jerusalem. The ritual immersion practices, the connection to the Temple Mount, and the sophisticated engineering of the water systems all point to a level of organization and religious complexity that challenges simplified Sunday school versions of biblical events. When Jesus healed the blind man at this pool, he wasn't performing an isolated miracle in some quiet spiritual setting. He was making a profound theological and political statement in one of the most significant religious centers of his time. The implications of this are making many Christians deeply uncomfortable because it forces them to confront the reality that their faith is grounded in historical events that were far more complex and controversial than they've been led to believe. The discovery is also raising uncomfortable questions about the relationship between faith and evidence. Many Christians have been taught that faith requires believing without proof, that somehow having evidence diminishes the spiritual value of belief. But the Pool of Siloam is providing exactly the kind of concrete, verifiable evidence that makes faith less about blind trust and more about historical reality. The Israeli archaeological team has uncovered evidence that's forcing scholars to ask questions that many in the Christian community don't want to hear. The sophistication of the Pool of Siloam complex suggests that first-century Judaism was far more organized, politically aware, and theologically complex than traditional Christian teaching is acknowledged. The pool's connection to the Temple Mount through the Pilgrim Road reveals a systematic approach to religious practice that challenges the idea of early Christianity as a simple grassroots movement. Instead, it suggests that Jesus was operating within a highly sophisticated religious and political environment where every action carried profound implications. The coins, pottery, and other artifacts found at the site don't just confirm the pool's existence. They reveal details about the economic, social, and religious systems that surrounded it. The stone bottle stoppers, for instance, suggest a level of commercial activity and religious regulation that many Christians find difficult to reconcile with their understanding of biblical times. But here's the most unsettling discovery of all. The pool wasn't just used for the healing of the blind man. It was part of a complex system of ritual purification that was essential for temple worship. This means that Jesus' miracle wasn't just about physical healing. It was about religious inclusion, social justice, and challenging the established religious order in ways that had profound political implications. Do you think these discoveries about the Pool of Siloam suggest that Jesus' actions were more politically and religiously charged than traditionally believed? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and follow the channel to discover more interesting things. Some believers are actually troubled by the discovery of the Pool of Siloam, and their reasons might surprise you. The problem isn't that the discovery contradicts their faith. The problem is that it confirms their faith in ways that make them uncomfortable. For generations, many Christians have been comfortable with a faith that existed primarily in the spiritual realm. They could believe in biblical miracles without having to deal with the messy realities of historical evidence, political implications, and archaeological verification. The Pool of Siloam discovery is forcing them out of that comfortable spiritual bubble and into the harsh light of historical reality. The pool's existence means that the Gospel of John wasn't just a spiritual allegory. It was eyewitness testimony about real events that happened in real places with real political and social consequences. This level of historical grounding is making some Christians nervous because it raises the stakes for everything else in Scripture. If the Pool of Siloam is real, then the cross is real, the resurrection is real, and all the challenging teachings of Jesus about social justice, religious reform, and political transformation are real too. Some Christians preferred that these could be treated as spiritual metaphors rather than historical imperatives. The Pool of Siloam wasn't just a place of healing, it was a site of political and religious resistance. The sophisticated water system, the connection to the Temple Mount, and the role in ritual purification all point to a level of organized religious activity that had profound political implications. When Jesus performed the healing at this pool, he wasn't just demonstrating divine power. He was making a statement about religious inclusion, social justice, and the transformation of established religious practices. The blind man's healing wasn't just physical, it was social, economic, and political, allowing him to participate fully in religious and community life for the first time. This political dimension of Jesus' ministry is something that many modern Christians and church leaders find deeply uncomfortable. They prefer a Jesus who focuses on personal salvation and spiritual transformation while avoiding challenging social and political issues. But the Pool of Siloam discovery is revealing that the historical Jesus was deeply engaged with the political and social issues of his time. The archaeological evidence suggests that early Christianity wasn't just a personal religious movement. It was a social and political transformation that challenged existing power structures, religious hierarchies, and economic systems. This is making many contemporary Christians very nervous because it implies that authentic Christian faith should be equally transformative in modern social and political contexts. As excavations continue and more of the Pool of Siloam complex is revealed, we're likely to uncover even more evidence that will challenge traditional Christian assumptions. The Israeli Antiquities Authority has plans to remove old pipes and vegetation to expose more of the ancient structure, and each discovery has the potential to reshape our understanding of biblical history. But here's what's really keeping Christian scholars awake at night. If the Pool of Siloam is this historically accurate, what other biblical sites might be discovered that will provide similar levels of verification? What happens when archaeology confirms not just the locations of biblical events, but the social, political, and economic context that surrounded them? The discovery is also raising questions about the relationship between faith and scholarship. Many Christians have been taught to view academic biblical criticism with suspicion, but the Pool of Siloam discovery is showing that serious archaeological and historical research can actually strengthen rather than undermine faith. This is forcing a reconsideration of the relationship between faith and intellectual inquiry. The pool is becoming a pilgrimage site for modern Christians, but it's also becoming a place where believers are forced to confront the historical reality of their faith. Standing at the actual location where Jesus healed the blind man isn't just spiritually moving. It's historically overwhelming, and it's changing how people understand the relationship between faith and history. The Pool of Siloam was hidden for nearly 2,000 years, buried by rubble, forgotten by time, dismissed by skeptics, and perhaps preferred that way by some believers. Yet today it stands revealed once more, testifying with every stone that the Bible was historically accurate in ways that both confirm and challenge traditional Christian faith. The Gospel of John wasn't an allegory. It was eyewitness truth recorded by someone who knew the actual locations, understood the political implications, and witnessed the social transformation that Jesus' ministry represented. The blind man's healing wasn't a myth. It was a miracle with profound historical, social, and political dimensions that continues to challenge us today. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.